Picture the people of Israel standing on the plains of Moab, just east of the Jordan River. Moses reminds the people of the events of the last 40 years. Then he repeats the 10 Commandments. He admonishes them to follow God's laws. And then he recites the most important words in Judaism, you know to which I refer. Moses says, imagine. He's saying to the people for the first time, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. The fundamental concept of Judaism. Not so much a prayer as a declaration, though we call it a prayer and use it as a prayer. And I think I accept that. Being a prayer isn't just the sum of the words, but what it means to us inside and what we express to God. It's a key component of the morning and evening worship. And then there's the bedtime Shema. It becomes the first prayer that a Jewish child is taught to say. And at the center of identity, our identity as Jews, we think of ourselves as the people who say Shema Yisrael twice a day. In the service, it forms a key part. And we're going to say it in the evening service tonight. But I want to take a quick look at the English because knowing Jews as I do, turn to page 41 with me. I have a suspicion that you know the Hebrew better than you know the English. Let's take a quick look at this. Anybody want to help me? No, this is being on camera. I'd better do the reading. Okay, page 41 in the English. I'm going to, Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. By the way, if you read this in the Eitz Chaim, it says, Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai alone. Yeah, I don't want to get into the translation of this right now, but if you ever want to talk about that, I can talk about it with you longer than you want to listen. All right, in the English, you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all that is yours. Those are the words I want to focus on. These words that I command you this day shall be taken to heart. Teach them again and again to your children. Speak of them when you sit in your home, when you walk on your way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. This becomes important. Bind them as a sign on your hand and as a symbol above your eyes, and inscribe them upon the doorposts of your home and your gates. So everybody knows what this is referring to, right? So we say that. Well, maybe at Beth Torah we don't say it twice a day, but in 2 of the 3 services a day it gets said. Skip over to page 42 and look at the second paragraph, not the first one. Adonai said to Moses, speak to the people Israel and instruct them that in every generation they shall put tzitzit on the corners of their garments, placing a thread of blue on the tzitzit. So that guides another very common, we recognize, essential, I think I'd say, Jewish custom of wearing a tallis with tzitzit to remind us of the commandments. A love story about a shepherd born in 50 A.D. in Israel, ruled by the Romans. He's so poor that at 40 years old, he has nothing. He looks after the flock of a rich man because he doesn't own a flock. He's poor and illiterate. Against all expectations, the daughter of the rich man falls in love with him, and he with her, but he's so ashamed of his condition that he's too afraid to express his love. And so it is she, the amazing Rachel, who proposes marriage to Akiva. But only if he will agree to one thing: he will learn to read and write. Her father promptly disowns her, and the two are cast out into the street. There's an interesting story where they're sleeping in a farmer's barn for the night on a pile of hay, and that hay is all that they have. I really want to say straw. I'm a city boy. I tend to confuse the two things. And it's said that Akiva takes a clump of that golden-colored straw, and he shows it to Rachel, and he says, "If I could, I would give to you a Jerusalem of gold," noting the color of the straw. But he can't. He goes to school with the young children to learn the alphabet, but suffers through that humiliation because his beloved Rachel asks him to. Isn't this a great love story? And she sends him off to learn, and she finds an income and provides an income for him to learn. After 24 years, he returns triumphant, followed by 24,000 disciples. The people of every town in Palestine turn out to line the ways to see the great Akiva. And a woman approaches him, and the students hold her back with the rest of the crowd, and he says, "Let her through. Everything that I am, and everything that you are, you owe to this woman." Akiva goes on to help systemize the Mishnah. We know that Judah HaNasi writes it down, collects the Mishnah. He runs afoul of the Romans because he breaks their decree not to teach Torah. He continues to teach it in public. And in about 135 AD, depending on who you read, it's 132 or 137, the Romans execute him publicly by scraping his skin off with iron combs. And as he dies, he says these words: "You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all that is yours." And his disciples, almost in horror, say, "How can you be thinking about that now?" And Akiva reportedly answers, "All my life I have loved God with all my heart, and I have loved him with all of my strength. But until now, I didn't know I could love him with all of my soul." Now, to understand what comes next, you have to understand the word that we use when we say this: Kol nishmacha. Nishma is soul, but it is also breath. And he says, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Echad, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, with his last breath, and he stretches out the word Echad. And to this day, when we say that, we also stretch out the word Echad in remembrance of Rabbi Akiva. The Talmud records that there were 2 babies born in Caesarea that day, which is where this happens. One of those, all right, I'm going to say this real quick. My wife's telling me I've used my time. One was to a Jewish woman And against Roman law, they have him circumcised on the 8th day. The other baby was of the governor of Syria, Palestine. And it so happened that the two women knew each other. And so they trade babies so that she will not be caught with a circumcised baby. And then some weeks later or months later, when it's safe, they trade them back. The Jewish baby becomes Judah the prince, who writes the Mishnah. And they say that the Roman baby became emperor, but I can't figure out which one. And that's the story, as I know it, of the Shema. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Say that. That's right. That's a story that's brought up on Yom Kippur.
Thank you. We are on